Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. From now on, we're going to be using another VMware workstation called VMware Workstation Player. This is a free version as opposed to the other ones we started with, which is, I'm sure, expired by 30 days. So we're going to continue to do it. I'm going to quickly show you how to do this and how to install it. So I'm giving you the link right here. So copy the link and paste it, and you'll get to this state. Now I'm going to be relatively quick here because I've already gone through how to create install virtual software, and how to create a domain controller, and how to create a domain, and then how to join a domain. So I'm not going to go through all that process, and if I do, I'll be relatively quick. But this should be relatively straightforward for you since you've gone through this process. So click on Try for Free, and then once you download it, click on the download and go next. And it's very similar to what we're doing with the other version, but this one is free, so you can keep it. And when obviously there are times when it takes a few minutes or 4 or 5 minutes to do, I'll pause the video and then we'll come back. So what I'm going to do right now is quickly install this software, and then I'm going to obviously install the Windows operating system, and then we'll have a virtual machine. After that, I will install the Active Directory roles. After that, I will promote the role to a Windows domain controller, and then it will become a domain controller with the domain. Then after that, I'm going to create another virtual machine where we're going to install SQL Server 2012 on it, the server, and start doing work from then on. So this should be relatively straightforward to you, as I've gone through this process with you in the first few videos that we started this course with. But this is just an extra stuff that I thought you would like. I was going to keep this for the third course that I'm going to do, which is HA Solutions, when we actually create a cluster. But I think it may be beneficial for you to go through this process again. While you will probably never have to create a domain controller or even virtual machines, actually, at least you should have a good understanding of what VMs are and what Active Directory does. And I think we're getting a sound understanding of virtual directory. So we're going to be creating our courses here where we'll need the domain controller just for a few things, and this will give us an illustration. So click Finish. Okay, so now that it's installed, just double click it. And obviously this window pops up. I'm going to remove that since I've already did that. So this is the interface that allows you to create virtual machines, as you probably know. Very simple. Go create virtual machine. It's going to associate itself with an ISO image, which is the operating system. Go next. Go next. Yes. And I'm going to call it domain. I'm going to call it domain so we can understand it. Domain controller. I think that's good enough. It's very descriptive. And basically, we're just going to accept the defaults and move forward. Now, obviously, it's going to install the Windows operating system on it. So I'm going to pause the video. And when it's finished, it takes about 6-7 minutes. Then we'll come back and resume. And at this point, go down and install. So as soon as it starts installing, I'll stop the video. So as you'll notice that I'm going relatively fast, and that's because, as I said, we've already gone through this process before. The only different thing is just a different application, but the procedures are the same. An additional thing I am going to do for you on this particular case is I'm going to show you how to set static IP addresses. So once you have this environment, you'll have not only the domain controller, you'll also have another virtual machine that will be part of the domain with static IP addresses. And that's how actually you're setting it up if you have ever had to set it up in a real environment. But this will certainly help you. So I'm going to pause the video now, and as soon as it comes back, finishes, I'll start. And we're back, and as you can see, the operating system has been installed. So in order for you to prevent this server manager window keep popping up, go to Manage, Server Properties, and click this. But since we need it right now, well, I'm not going to set it to OK. So the next thing we're going to do is set this operating system to a domain controller. So go Add Roles and Features, go Next, 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 and select Active Directory Domain Services. Add Features, go Next, add the .NET framework, Next, Next, and install. And this is going to take about 10 minutes. So again, I'm going to pause the video. When this is finished, I'll come back. So see you in a minute. And we're back. And as you can see, the installation is complete. So now what we're going to do is promote the this operating system to a domain controller. So all you have to do is click this, and a new window will pop up. And it's just taking a second. And there we go. So we've gone through this process before, so I'm not going to call it. I'm going to call it a dba.com or .com. Go Next. So we've gone through all this process of understanding what a forest is and so on. So as I keep saying, we're going to be relatively fast. This is going to take about 60 seconds to 90 seconds. So we'll just stay with this while it does its configurations. And again, once it gets to the state where it's going to take some time, I'll pause the video and then we'll come back. So it's always good to know as a DBA what the domain controller is and its role as an Active Directory. If there is any interaction between the DBA and the domain controller, this is probably the only thing, or most likely the only thing that you'll be kind of looking at. Most of the time this is handled by the network admin or the system admin. But again, it's always advantageous to know about what the domain controller does in terms of securities also. So give it a password. So I'm going to give it a complex password. And go Next. And go Next. And go Next here also. Just takes a few seconds. As you can see. Okay, so let's go Next. And Next. And it's ready to install, so go Yes. Now it's going to check to see if there's any requisites that we need. As you can see, the local administrator becomes a domain administrator, and obviously the password has failed. So in order for you to create a little more complex password, that's one of them, we have to go to your. So let's look at. Actually, I need to go to the. Let's see. Go to Control. This is always good practice to know. Change account. We'll do a local admin. Create a password. So I want to make sure it's a complex password with uppercases, lowercases, numbers, and values. So make sure you do that. And let's call it anything. And go Create. And that should do it. So now if we go back and rerun the requisite, hopefully that'll solve the problem. And we can continue with installing or promoting this operating system to a domain controller. It never hurts to repeat yourself in doing this, even though I've gone through this process initially. Redoing it is certainly beneficial to you. But again, this application, the VMware Workstation 12 Player, is not a 30-day trial period, so you can keep it as long as you wish. And we'll be continuing our courses on this particular platform also, so it's going to benefit the future courses that I create. So this just takes seconds, and obviously if everything is fine, we'll be able to install the promote this, and then I'll pause the video and then it will come back. And see all prerequisites checked passed successfully. That's good. So go install. So now it's going to install the Active Directory domain controller. This may take a few minutes again. So at this point, I'm going to pause the video and then we'll come back when it's ready. And so I'll pause and we'll see you in a few seconds. And we're back, and as you can see, the operating system has been installed. And now this operating system is a Windows domain controller. So if you go to your folder here, right click on your computer, go to properties, you'll see indeed it's a domain DBA. So now that we've set the operating system to become a domain controller, there are a few things we need to manage. And a couple of things is we need to set the IP address. The other thing I want you to do is go to your control panel. And here, just go click on small icons. Go to your Windows firewall. And then disable, go to your here. And disable your firewalls for this particular thing. Now, obviously, in a production environment, you'll use isolation. But for our purposes, that's fine. So you're going to most likely see everything here. And if you have the firewall turned on, then you cannot activate the network card. So here we're going to turn them off as such, as I have already, and go OK. So now you can see they're all red. The other thing I want you to do now is go to your player, manage, virtual machine setting, and then go to your network adapter, and you'll have this defaulted right here. Click on the bridge and go OK. So now that we got those few things out of the way, a couple of more things, and now we can configure our network interface card to use a static IP address. So here, right click, open network and sharing, change adapter settings, double click, go to properties, and then you'll see the protocol 6 version 6 checked. Uncheck it, so uncheck it. And then the protocol that we're going to set, the IP address, is on Internet Protocol version 4. So click on that, go to properties, and you'll see this. And now we're going to add the static IP address. So go over here and then follow this. Now, how do you get this IP address, the subnet, the default gateway? Well, let's start with, I've got an illustration here for me. Now, obviously, I'm at home. So this is going to be a home network installation. And I'm going to give you this diagram here. And these are the static IP addresses if you're most likely at home. Now, let's talk about the default gateway. The default gateway basically is the IP address that your router is giving. So if you have a network like Hawks or another network internet provider, they'll be giving you. They give you a modem and a wireless network I can't say it now. Network card. And they will give you this static IP address. You'll have to ask them what their IP address is. Most likely it's 192.168. Either it's going to be 1 and 1, or it's going to be, in my case, it's 0. So the default gateway is your router. That's the word I was trying to look for the router. And the router's primary purpose is to allocate IP addresses, if you will, in the simplest sense. So again, most likely yours will be 192.168.1.1, or as in my case is 0. So having said that, I'm going to follow this. So I'm going to add my IP address. Now the IP address, again, is a range. In my case, the network IP address is given to me a range from, I believe, from 1 to 100. So I can use anywhere from 1 to 100 devices. So I'm going to allocate 50 to this one. So let me go back here. Now, if this sounds a little confusing, it probably is, so don't worry about it. But in all honesty, just follow 0.50. Let me see if I do that. And as soon as you click on this, this will populate automatically. Leave that. Again, the default gateway is your router, 192.168.0.1. So far, so good. So far, so good. And then same here. Make sure you put your IP address, 192.168.0.50. We're going to let the DNS go back to the domain controller, and then we're just going to say 127.0.0.1 and then go OK. So let's just double check that our IP addresses is fine. 167 just to confirm, and go OK. And now you've created given it a static IP address, and in a few seconds this will go away, as you can see. So that's how you create a static IP address. And again, just to clarify, the default gateway is the router, the wireless router, or the router that your internet provider provides for you. And most likely that address will be either 192.168.1.1, or in my case, because I have Cox, it will be 192.168.0.1. So whatever yours is, just follow the path and then add the following IP addresses, and you should be good to go. And so now what I want you to do now, and we can obviously access the internet because you can see access type internet. So what I want you to do now is I want you to recreate another virtual machine. Recreate another virtual machine following the same pattern as we did. If we double click, let me click on this, and I think this is because this is a slightly different commercial free. They don't give you all the hooplas. So I want you to go to here, this environment, create a new virtual machine, follow the same directions I showed you from the start, and then in your second, once you've added it, do not make it a domain controller. That's going to be your workstation. And then once you've installed the operating system and you've joined the domain, and I've shown you how to do that, give it an IP address. So what IP address should you give your virtual machine? Well, you're going to follow exactly the same thing, except you're going to increase this by 1. So if I scroll down, you'll see that I've got 51 here. So this is the network connection details for your second machine. If you were to create another machine, a third machine, and then you wanted to create a static IP address, then you would increase this by 1 to 52, and so on. So again, I don't want to discuss too much here. I just wanted to introduce you to this new application that we're going to be using. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can certainly follow along and get a great benefit from this course without doing it, but it always helps if you're doing it. So I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to get too complicated, and we'll see you in the next course and or the next video. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator.